So if you're looking at the Lancaster apartment market right now, you might think things are pretty stable, maybe even strong, but there's something happening just beneath the surface. A really important shift is starting to unfold, and it's going to change the game for pretty much everyone. Renters, landlords, you name it. So let's dig in and figure out what's really going on. All right, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the market's big contrast, then look at this great rebalancing that's happening. We'll even try to picture this change with a simple curve. Then we'll tackle what people get wrong, what it all means for you, and finally, the new rules of renting in today's market. Let's get started. Okay, first things first. First, to really get a handle on what's happening today, we've got to look back at what's been driving this market for years. And it's really been a story of contrasts, a classic tug of war between crazy high demand and just not enough places for people to live. For the longest time, the story in Lancaster was just there weren't enough apartments, period. The number of available units was incredibly low. And if you were out there looking for a place, oh man, you felt that pressure. You know that feeling, right? You see a new listing pop up and you have to drop everything just to get a look because you know there's already a line of people right behind you. It was intense. So you've got to ask, why? Why is demand so incredibly strong here? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a perfect storm, really. You've got people moving in from more expensive cities nearby, which makes a ton of sense. The local economy is chugging along nicely. More people are moving to the area than leaving. And honestly, the quality of life is a huge draw. You put all that together and yeah, you've got a recipe for a super tight rental market. But all that pressure, all that competition, it couldn't last forever. It actually triggered a massive response. And that brings us to the biggest story happening in the market right now. A huge new wave of supply is finally here, and it's starting to rebalance the scales. You can really think of this whole shift in 3 simple steps. First, you had the squeeze, right? Way too many people chasing way too few apartments. That intense demand basically sent up a giant flare to developers saying, hey, we need more housing, which led to step 2, the response, and that was a major construction boom. And now? Well, now we're in step 3, the rebalance. All those new buildings are opening up and it's changing the whole vibe of the market. And listen, we're not just talking about a few new buildings here and there. This is a genuinely historic amount of new construction. I mean, we've seen hundreds of new apartments come online recently, with a whole lot more on the way. This is probably the biggest wave of new supply this market has seen in a very long time. And it feels like it's really just getting started, you know? Sometimes it's hard to feel these big market shifts when you're just going about your day. So to really wrap our heads around this turning point, let's try to picture it. So how can we boil this entire shift down into a single simple picture? Well, forget all the spreadsheets and complicated data for a second. The whole story can really be told with just one imaginary curve. Okay, just imagine a chart with me for a second. Let's say it tracks apartment availability over the past few years. For a long time, that line would be totally flat, just bumping along the bottom, near zero, barely any availability. But then a little while ago, you'd see that line start to bend. It would begin a slow but steady climb upwards, heading back toward a much healthier, more normal level. That climb right there, that's the whole story. And that little bend in our imaginary line, that's what we're talking about. That's the turning point. It's the exact moment the market started to soften up a bit. And I want to be clear, we're not talking about a crash, not at all. We're talking about softening. It's that point where new apartments are opening just a little bit faster than people can move in. And it's finally giving the whole system some breathing room. It's a huge deal. All right, so this flood of new apartments, it brings up something that a lot of people get wrong about how housing markets actually work. Let's clear it up. Okay, so here's the common assumption, right? You see a shiny new luxury building go up and you think, great, that's for people with a ton of money. It does absolutely nothing for me or my rent in this older building. It makes sense to think that, but the market reality is totally different. The entire market is connected. Think of it like a chain reaction or a ripple effect. When someone moves into one of those brand new, expensive units, where did they come from? They probably left behind a perfectly good, slightly older, and less expensive apartment. Now that unit is open, so someone else moves into it, leaving their old place empty. This cascade effect works its way all the way down, opening up options and easing competition across the board, not just at the very top. So we've gone through all the high-level stuff, supply, demand, these big market forces. But what does all this rebalancing actually mean for you? Like, what does it feel like in the real world? Let's get into it. Yeah, this shift really does hit everyone a little differently. If you're a renter, this is good news. The game is changing in your favor. You've got more choices, you can take a little more time to decide, and you might even have some room to negotiate. Now, if you're a property owner, the pressure's on you now. It's not just about having an empty apartment anymore. You've got to compete for good tenants. Service and value are suddenly a lot more important. And for investors, the days of easy automatic rent growth are probably on pause. The environment is just way more stable and frankly more competitive. So what's the bottom line here? Where does this leave us? Well, it basically means there's a new set of rules for how to play the game in the Lancaster rental market. The whole story has changed. Seriously, the entire feel of the market is different now. Just a couple of years ago, it was a frantic sprint, right? A mad dash to sign a lease on pretty much anything with 4 walls and a roof. Now it's more like a measured search. The power is slowly shifting, and it's giving renters a chance to find the right place, not just the only place. So if there's just one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. The Lancaster apartment market is not falling apart, not even close, but it's absolutely entered a new chapter. This new market rewards patience and doing your homework. It punishes anyone who's still operating on the outdated assumption that it's as crazy competitive as it was a couple of years ago. The rules have changed, and just knowing that, well, that's your biggest advantage now.